Hi there, I'm Duncan Kay, and I want to tell you about a technology coming to the new car market next year, which really is a groundbreaking moment in the history of driving. You see, while every year new cars are launched with new and improved features aimed at making our roads safer, this particular technology is different from anything that has gone before. For the first time, cars fitted with this technology will have been designed to allow the person sitting in the driving seat to hand control over to the vehicle itself and disengage from the driving task. That feels like a pretty momentous change. Well, there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about automated technology in vehicles. Next year will be the first time that cars fitted with this technology will be available for the public to buy. So how did we get here? And what does this mean for road safety? Well, first perhaps, I'd better explain my role. I'm Head of Vehicle Engineering at the Department for Transport. I work in our International Vehicle Standards Division. We're the division which represents the UK government in international negotiation of type approval regulations. These are the standards that new models of cars, trucks, buses and coaches must meet before they can be brought to market. Negotiation of type approval regulations is part of the work of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, or UNECE for short, where Working Party 29's role is to be the World Forum for Harmonisation of Vehicle Regulations. The forum has been working to harmonise regulations since the early 1950s. Between then and now, it has overseen the development of a range of safety and environmental legislation for new vehicles. On the safety side, this has included developing the technical requirements for various driver assistance technologies, from anti-lock braking systems in the early 2000s right through to today's advanced lane-keeping assistance systems. So I and members of my team were heavily involved in the negotiation of the requirements for this new technology. But as I said, this technology is different from anything that's gone before. Current lane keep assistance and adaptive cruise control systems are all designed to assist the driver, but the driver is still responsible for safety and is expected to be engaged and continuously monitoring what the vehicle is doing. The new automated lane keeping systems, expected to be available next year, will allow the driver to hand over control to the vehicle itself in certain situations, those being low-speed motorway driving up to 60 km per hour, which is about 37 miles an hour, in a given lane. Essentially, the system is a motorway traffic jam chauffeur. Once the system has been engaged, it is responsible for the safe operation of the vehicle. If it determines that it needs the driver to take back control, for example because traffic speeds have increased above 37 miles an hour, it will issue a transition demand with a visual and audible warning sign. The driver is expected to respond, and if they do not, then the warnings are escalated to include haptic warnings, for example through vibrating the driver's seat or momentarily jerking the brakes. If the driver still doesn't respond, then the vehicle will start to slow down and would eventually stop and activate the hazard warning lights. This is called a minimum risk maneuver. This might happen, for example, if a driver has suffered a medical emergency and is unable to take back control. Many current lane keep assistance systems will react in a similar way if a driver stops holding the steering wheel and ignores all the warnings to put their hands back on the wheel. Nevertheless, many of us are aware that a small minority of drivers choose to misuse existing lane keeping and adaptive cruise control systems, becoming distracted, failing to maintain concentration, and even in some cases leaving the driver's seat or falling asleep, with serious potential safety risks resulting. Our desire is that automated lane keeping systems will help tackle distracted driving by providing a system that is designed to allow a driver safely to disengage from the task of driving, but we must still guard against misuse. To do this, the regulation includes stringent requirements for sophisticated driver monitoring. This can be achieved through various approaches, but is likely to include monitoring of the driver's eyes and body movements, as well as any inputs to controls. This is designed to ensure that drivers cannot fall asleep or attempt to leave the driver's seat, and are always ready to take back control when needed. The regulation also requires that the human driver can override the system at any time. Clearly, it's important that if a driver accidentally knocks the controls while the system is active, this doesn't lead to an unintended deactivation of the system. So the regulation requires that any such input to the controls must be above a certain threshold before control is handed back to the driver. The system will also check that the driver is attentive before allowing control to be handed back. This will probably be done through checking gaze direction, although manufacturers can choose alternative approaches. During this process, the system is considered to be in control of the vehicle until the system deactivates and control is resumed by the driver. Of course, while the system is in control of the vehicle, it must respond appropriately to unexpected events. For example, if another vehicle cuts in front or starts to drift out of lane and there's an imminent risk of collision, then the system must be able to perform an emergency maneuver. This includes steering to avoid the collision within the confines of the lane and potentially applying full braking. The regulation also requires the system to comply with relevant traffic rules. So, for example, it should read and recognize temporary lower speed limits or lane closures communicated by overhead gantry signs and respond appropriately, if necessary requesting that the driver takes back control by issuing a transition demand. Clearly, if a vehicle fitted with this technology does commit a traffic offence, for example exceeding the speed limit, then it will be crucial to be able to determine who was responsible for driving at the time, the driver or the automation system. For this reason, the regulation requires that these vehicles are fitted with a data storage system that will record the exact time at which the automation system is activated and deactivated. This data recorder will also record timings of any minimum risk maneuver or emergency maneuver, as well as any severe failures of the system or the vehicle. And of course, if the vehicle detects it is involved in a collision, this would also be recorded. Another critically important consideration for the introduction of automation technology in vehicles is the need to ensure such vehicles are secure against cyber attack, and that any updates to the software on the vehicle are controlled and approved. This is why, in parallel to the development of the automation regulation, two further regulations were developed, one covering cybersecurity and the other software updates. Together, these are designed to ensure that vehicles remain secure against cyber attack and compliant with regulatory requirements throughout the vehicle's lifetime. So hopefully you can begin to see that these systems and the vehicles they're fitted to will be significantly more sophisticated than today's driver assistance systems. However, it is essential that drivers understand and use these systems appropriately, and that the introduction of this technology doesn't create new safety risks. Clearly, manufacturers and their dealerships have a role to play here, ensuring that purchasers of this new technology are fully informed of both its capabilities and its limitations. However, the government also needs to ensure that our regulations and guidance are appropriate for the arrival of this new technology. And this is why the Department for Transport, together with the government's Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles, issued a call for evidence on the 18th of August, seeking views on the safe use of these systems. I should explain at this point that the call for evidence closed on the 27th of October, but as this speech was recorded before that, I'm unable to give you any insights into the responses. Importantly, the call for evidence considers whether a vehicle fitted with automated lane keeping technology falls into the definition of an automated vehicle as set out in the Automated and Electric Vehicles Act 2018. This is a crucial point. The Act defines an automated vehicle as a vehicle capable of safely driving itself, meaning it is not being controlled and does not need to be monitored by an individual. The call for evidence sets out an approach for assessing whether a technology meets this definition. If automated lane keeping technology does, then we need to consider what other activities drivers should be permitted to undertake while the system is in control of the vehicle. Manufacturers argue it's important to allow the driver to undertake other activities, as it helps to ensure that they will remain alert and ready to take back control when necessary. It's expected that manufacturers may design these vehicles intending that the inbuilt infotainment system could be used to watch a film or perhaps check emails or text messages. But allowing this would need a change in our vehicle use regulations. The call for evidence will gather views about this, and if other activities are allowed, what they should be. Equally, the introduction of such systems may require changes to the highway code to clarify how drivers should safely use them and what their responsibilities are while doing so. For example, it's important to ensure that drivers understand the need to take back control when the system issues a transition demand. Otherwise, the minimum risk maneuver could result in the vehicle coming to a standstill in a live traffic lane, which is clearly undesirable and could actually be an offence under our motorway traffic regulations. Again, the call for evidence will gather views on how to handle this. Finally, we're keen to look at how we can safely enable greater use of automated lane keeping systems. The government is aware that manufacturers may already have developed these systems to be able to operate safely at higher speeds. This isn't currently permitted by the regulation, but as we leave the European Union at the end of this year, we'll have greater flexibility to determine our requirements for new vehicles in Great Britain. This could include potentially allowing automated lane keeping systems that operate up to 70 miles an hour, where a manufacturer has designed it to do so safely. The call for evidence asks for views on this. So in summary, I think the arrival of this new technology really is a historic moment. It marks the beginning of an exciting new journey in the development of road transport, and the UK wants to be the first country to see the road safety benefits that automated technology can bring. That's why we're preparing the way for manufacturers to deploy this transformative technology and supporting the development of advanced automated vehicles for the future. Thank you for listening.